Okay, this is my level 63 hardcore season 4 barbarian, Marcellus. So anyway, this is the armor I've chosen for him, and I had a longer explanation for this yesterday, so I just wanted to do a quicker one today. Reason I have this armor, and I know it's going to be a little controversial in some circles, but the reason he's wearing this getup is this is the seasonal armor, and I discovered when I was looking at the Hall of Fallen Heroes, they don't have a date of when they met their end. They don't say what season they were on. They don't give a whole lot of information. I'll just very quickly show you. Like right here, like campaign progress 50%, level 42. Campaign progress 100% because I skipped the campaign, obviously. But it would be nice if they put like the date that they died, or like at least what season it was. The other thing is, I think what'll happen once I've used all 8 slots, which, you know, some of these characters died to like lag and stuff like that, like these two. I think he might have, I don't remember. But I know these level 20s here, they died due to lag. So, but I think once those 8 slots get used up, when my 9th one dies, they're just going to bump her off because she was the first, which I think is silly. What I think should happen is you take whoever has the lowest amount of experience, so either her or him, and they go, so that at the end you have your best hardcore character as the ones who lasted the longest. And then once you get to level 100, I mean, if I ever get to like 8 level 100 hardcore characters, yeah, right. But then it doesn't really matter as much, but it's just like, it's kind of annoying that these peak guys who like died due to lag are going to stick around longer than the original level 42 hardcore character. It'd be nice if they ordered them by rank too. Like you could see very clearly, you know, this one would be at the top, then my second character, funnily enough, would be there, then him, so on and so forth. So anyway, just a couple beefs about that. But one thing that I can do to keep track though is by having them wear the seasonal armor, so that when they die I can look at it and go, aha, that was my season 4 hardcore character. So that's why. And then, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter so much since they are, at least for now, in order of the time, so I can kind of keep track that way. But I still think it's kind of neat to see, okay, well, there, you know, maybe there's a division between seasons. Like, you know, eventually I'm going to see, like, you know, maybe this guy will get up to level 80 or something, right? And then next season will be harder, and my best hardcore character next season will be level 72. And I could kind of measure how difficult each season was because they'll all be wearing the seasonal armor. So that's kind of the rationale behind it. And also, like, they wouldn't be, like, this is the complete armor set that he's wearing. You know, you could kind of see, like, if they should die before they unlock all of the armor and so on and so forth, and you can kind of see that progression in the collections. So anyway, that's why I'm doing it. I also want to just quickly go over my build. It's been a while since I went over it. So the idea behind this character again is that I'm doing damage based on overpower. It's a hardcore barbarian, you know. don't want to die. So the idea is that I generate fortify. See, damaging a stunned enemy with bash. Grants me some life as fortified, double the amount when using a two-handed weapon. So of course I'm using a two-handed weapon. And then after critically striking 4 times with bash using a two-handed weapon, my next core weapon mastery skill will overpower. So essentially, the idea is I get overpowers with bash, and it also grants me fortify. Fortify damage is based on my maximum life and the amount of fortify I have, so adding fortify increases the damage I do. Also increases my survivability at the same time. So it's a pretty good hardcore build. I've run into a few problems here and there, but for the most part it's been pretty good. Again, I'm using Hammer of the Ancients. After overpowering with Hammer of the Ancients, I deal more damage. And so I have a bunch of stuff that helps me get overpower with that. And then this Rallying Cry grants me Unstoppable, and it grants me Fortify. So, that's key to this build. Just using this to get out of trouble spots, and I get that Fortify, which also means I get that overpower damage. Warcry, it increases my damage. It gives me Berserking. It's I think the only skill for this build that gives me Berserking. And it gives me Fortify. It's just, increases my offense, increases my defense. Perfect. I only put one. This was kind of a throwaway point. Movement speed is great. A lot of builds will actually put 3 points into this. I thought it was more important to get things like Imposing Presence for the maximum life. Again, Fortify is based on maximum life, and it increases survivability. So that's why I decided to do that, for example, over the movement. And then I have Rupture. This is my main skill, really. It has a cooldown, but I'll get to how I get around that in a moment. But this is guaranteed overpower. And it causes an explosion that causes bleeding damage. And it heals me. This is just, it's sick. These are granted. I have +2 to all weapon mastery skills, so I'm not using those. Those are just there. Then Thick Skin. Each time I take direct damage, I get life as Fortify. This increases the damage reduction gained while I'm fortified. While I'm fortified, I deal for a certain amount over my maximum life, which is really easy because I have so many sources of fortify. I deal a 12% increased damage, so that's almost a permanent 12% increased damage. Call of the Ancients is my my ultimate. This is just a great skill. You can use it to get out of trouble, which I think it's better than Berserking for hardcore. Definitely better than Iron Maelstrom. Because Iron Maelstrom just is, you get 3 huge hits. But with Call of the Ancients, the main thing for hardcore is if you're in a spot, you throw this on and you get out of there. And you kill some enemies on the way out. It's a no-brainer. And that's why I like it better than Berserking. Berserking, it doesn't really give you that cover fire the way that Call of the Ancients does. So then all of these are two-handed weapons, increase critical strike damage, overpowering gives me increased damage when using a two-handed weapon, 24% increased damage. Wallop, increased damage to the enemy stunned and vulnerable, like the bludgeoning weapons do a lot of stunning. And then concussion, skills using bludgeoning weapons have up to a 30% chance to stun enemies, but it's actually 45% because I'm using the two-handed weapon. So, a lot of stun. It's just all about surviving. And then gushing wounds, overpowering a bleeding enemy creates an explosion. So this gives me more explosions on top of the explosion that I already get from Rupture. Now, let's take a look at this. So read this again. If I overpower a bleeding enemy, it creates an explosion that inflicts bleeding damage over 5 seconds. Now, this is guaranteed overpower, right? So it will trigger this if I'm hitting a bleeding enemy. This skill, when I rip it out, it deals bleeding damage over 5 seconds. Oh, it causes an explosion, sorry, that deals bleeding damage over 5 seconds. So everything around me is suddenly bleeding for 5 seconds. Okay. So now, this guy, no. Where is it? I need to find it. My weapon mastery skills have an additional charge, and they also have a chance to stun. I mean, this is perfect. But that extra hit means that I do this, I cause that explosion. All of these enemies around are bleeding now for 5 seconds. I can immediately hit them again, which triggers another explosion. So I'm just going around exploding the crap out of things. It's fun. The other thing is this. I'm using my two-handed sword expertise, which means that no matter what weapon I'm using, 20% of the direct damage I deal is inflicted as bleeding damage over 5 seconds. So, I mean, everything is just constantly bleeding. So I'm I don't even need that extra charge, but I still get those multiple explosions. I get like a whole, just explosions after explosions. So that's kind of what we're doing. I don't have the ideal setup yet, but let's just take a look anyway. When I hit a crowd-controlled enemy, there's up to a 47% chance for that crowd control effect to spread to another unaffected enemy. So for the stuns, like if I hit a stunned enemy, for example, there's a chance that it will spread to another enemy who's not stunned. So that's just to spread more stun around. I have increased crowd control duration. I increased the stun durations. Again, additional charge, and I have a chance to stun them. Each point of fury generated while at maximum fury grants fortify, so that it's more fortify. Damaging, bleeding, or vulnerable enemies has up to a 27% chance to stun them, so everything's always bleeding, and then I get to stun them. Hammer of the Ancients quakes outward, and its damage is increased by 18%. The main reason I have that is just to increase the area of effect when I'm using Hammer of the Ancients, which has sort of become a secondary skill. If the Rupture isn't killing everything, I just switch to this. And, I mean, it deals extra overpower damage. It's just great. And it stuns. So, because of that passive skill. So anyway, this one, I don't swap weapons a whole lot. But I do sometimes, and this causes my basic skills every now and again to overpower. So if I run out of fury, and I really have to go back and use those basic skills to generate fury, at least I have a chance to overpower. That's the idea. Stunning a bleeding enemy. And the reason I don't swap enemies much is I'm either using this for Bash and Hammer of the Ancients, or I'm using this for the Rupture. So I'm not swapping to these. These are just kind of passive. They're there for that extra overpower damage, which I think is passive. I don't think I have to be using this to get that. I could be wrong about that. But I do get that after swapping weapons 8 times effect, even if I don't use this weapon. Similarly, this one I use it mostly for that overpowered damage. I also get that maximum life and 6 plus to strength. I think I get the damage over time. Again, don't really know. And I think I get that Bash Cleaves effect. So anyway, that's all great. This, stunning a bleeding enemy. So remember, a lot of stun, a lot of bleeding with this build. So now I deal a big chunk of that total bleeding damage to them as physical damage. That's wonderful. Already went over this. Distant enemies have a 10% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds. And I deal increased damage to stunned. The main thing is that increased damage to stunned enemies, since I'm doing a lot of stun. The chance to stun distant enemies is kind of useful. I'm a melee character. It gives me a chance to do something. If I'm surrounded by a bunch of enemies, I have to work through them to get to the ranged attackers. At least those guys have a chance to be stunned if they break through my defenses. This one's not hugely useful. It just means it's mostly because I'm in hardcore and I want to be able to use that shout skill to get me out of trouble. So whenever I cast a shout skill, its cooldown is reduced by 1.2 seconds per nearby enemy. So usually when I'm using that, it's because I get crowd control. There's a bunch of enemies. I need to get the hell out of there. So yeah, I can completely reduce that cooldown so that I can use it again very quickly if I'm still having difficulties. Alright, this is my one of my unique items. So after spending 100 Fury, my next cast of Hammer of the Ancients, Upheaval, or Death Blow. So mostly it's for the Hammer, well, it's all for the Hammer of Ancients ability, and it's guaranteed a critical strike and deals bonus critical strike damage. That's key. Critical strikes help me. And then I have an increased critical strike chance against injured enemies, and while I'm healthy, I gain increased crowd control duration. I mean, again, critical strike chance always good. And then I'm pretty much always healthy because of all the fortify that I have. So that increased crowd control, unless I'm in trouble, is usually affecting things. So again, and that also keeps me healthy because when enemies are stunned, they can't hit me. So that's it in a nutshell. That is pretty much what this build is all about. Stunning, fortifying, overpowering, and bleeding. It all kind of feeds into each other and make him this sort of crazy gladiatorial machine here. Alright, so let's take a look at the Paragon board here. Just really quickly, since I didn't really get a chance to. So the first board, I don't have a choice. It's the basic starting board. For the glyph here, I've selected Dominate. Eventually, once I upgrade it, I'll be able to get it to that 25 willpower, which will, every 30 seconds my next attack will overpower, so increases the number of overpowers. And I deal increased overpower damage, 10.1% at the moment just from that. The other one I've got here on the second board, so this board is what board is it? I don't know if it says anywhere. Well, it's a unique one, right? So this is the Bone Breaker board. I deal 4% increased damage while fortified, and I'll gain up to 10% damage reduction the more fortify I have. Once I trigger that willpower. And then the rare nodes are all excellent. 45% overpowered damage, increased strength, and then even more 40 overpowered damage once I hit that trigger. 5% damage reduction while healthy, could be up to 10%. That's not that exciting, but it's about survivability. This one, increased damage with bludgeoning weapons and increased overpowered damage. And I've got that extra 10% from my strength. Then I got this one over here that I'm going to try and grab, and that's 4% damage reduction while fortified and increased fortified generation. And then another increased damage reduction once I get that threshold. This is great. Every 12 seconds, next skill is guaranteed to overpower. That's pretty similar to what I will have down here once I hit the threshold, but this one's every 30 seconds. This one up here, every 12 seconds. Over here, 8% maximum life. I mean, it's good for a hardcore. It's also good for overpower. Bonus damage based on some of my current life and fortified life. So right now I'm just focusing on this board. I mean, a lot of my investment's going to go into this board. There's other boards that I'll take a look at, but this is the main event right here. Just damage reduction, extra fortification, extra overpower. The next board I get will probably be for bleeding, and maybe there's a board for stun, but I don't know.